Hey, Alice, welcome to the show and thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
How are things in Nevada these days? You teach at the University of Nevada. Go Wolfpack.
Yes, and we're thick or getting towards the end of basketball season, but thick into it. So it's kind of fun. It's beautiful here. I live at 5,300 feet in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Many people don't recognize that Reno is actually 8 hours north and west of Las Vegas. So a lot of people think I'm in the sunny Las Vegas area, but I'm right near Lake Tahoe. So I live in the mountains. And yes, it snows here. We have all 4 seasons, but it has been a beautiful February. Oddly enough, we've had unseasonably warm temperatures. So it's quite nice here.
Oh, that's great.
And how about for you? You're in Toronto. What's the weather like there?
I'd love to say it's unseasonably nice, but it's not today. We got hammered yesterday with some snow. So as we're recording this podcast, I've got a window that I closed the curtains on because I don't want to look at the snow I have to shovel after this podcast.
Got it.
And really, the intent of this podcast should just be a message to any young students in my neighborhood, begging them to come to our house to shovel the driveway, because we'll pay you anything. You can charge us anything at this time of day.
I love it.
So tell us a little bit, Alice. You've got a pretty unique journey, to get to the world of professional sales. Tell us a little bit about your journey in professional sales.
Yeah, well, I started in sales maybe a little bit late in my career because as we were talking about earlier, I started as an elementary special education teacher. And so I spent 13 years in public education and did a variety of different things. I have an undergraduate degree in special education and a graduate degree in literacy. And I was a reading specialist for 8 years. And then also while I was doing that, I was training teachers at the graduate level to improve their curriculum. So I really have a big foundation in education and curriculum, which a lot of people don't realize, but it has helped me in my sales career tremendously.
And so tell me a little bit about that, and then we're going to get to your sales career, but tell me how did that deep education background in education and curriculum tie into professional sales?
Well, it's interesting. So how do you go from being a teacher to being in sales, right? And actually, I think that teachers make great salespeople. I mean, that's all we do all day long is try to sell kids on doing what it is we want them to do, right?
That's right.
And so you get really good at it. And parents as well, right? So I think that that helped prepare me, but also because I really understand how people learn. So as a special educator, my education goes beyond what many teachers might, because I have a double degree in elementary ed and special ed. And so I really had to learn how children learn, especially when they have some sort of learning difficulty. They're not just going to learn like the rest of the kids do. So how do you get them to learn it and then retain it and then be able to actually use it? And so bringing that into the sales world, it's the same thing. They're just adults, but I have to help them change their behavior, right? That's what it's all about. I'm going to teach you something that you're going to learn to do so that you can change your behavior and be more successful. And I have a very good grounding in that because that's what I did in my early career.
And in both cases, it's all about them. There's that common tie, it seems, right? It's all about the kids and the special needs children that you were teaching. Right. And, in professional sales, it's all about the customer, the prospect. It's nothing about us and all about them. So
absolutely. And it has to be. And I think it's exactly the same with a student that you're trying to move from point A to point B. A buyer has to move from point A to point B, right? So you want to get what you want. I am going to guide you there, right? And if I make it about me, you'll never get there. Right. So I have to take you from where you are, wherever that is, different for every human being. And that's why in the complex sale, where there are multiple people involved in the decision, you can't just go, okay, we're going to move from here to here. Ready? Everybody go. Bam. Because each individual person has to, move at their own pace. Some of them go fast, some of them go slow, and some of them go curly. So you have to take them and guide them to their solution in a way that makes sense to them, not in the way that makes sense to you.
I've always thought that teachers, have the patience of angels. And I've always thought to myself, I don't know, my brother's a teacher, and he's kind of a very similar version to me in a lot of ways, similar value system, but he has no edge and no temper whatsoever, thank goodness. And so I understand what it takes to be able to do that. I, on the other hand, have a little bit of an edge and maybe a tiny bit of temper, particularly when we're playing hockey. You think of you in front of the classroom, you're getting immediate, feedback in real time when you're trying to lead along that journey and something doesn't resonate. I bet people would be misbehaving, you could tell they're disengaged. I think the challenge with this in professional sales, we're not sure we've even lost the buyers sometimes when we're trying to interact with them. When we make it about us, we're not bringing them along the journey. We don't even know. We start to kid ourselves, particularly in the virtual world.
So Mark, here's the thing. The only time I am 100% certain that I have your undivided attention is when you're talking to me. So as a salesperson, if I am doing all the talking and the show and tell and the demoing, do I have your attention? I don't know. You could be thinking about dinner. You could be thinking about where you're taking your spouse this weekend. You could be thinking about your mother because she's ill. I don't know what you're doing when I'm talking. But when you're talking, I can control myself and listen to you, right? So I know that I can control the conversation if you talk.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of salespeople miss this. I mean, we talk about listening all the time. Listen, you got to listen, you got to listen. But it's really more than that. It's just like back to when I was a teacher and I had kids who couldn't quite express, right, what they needed or wanted. And I would really have to tune in. I would really have to ask a question a different way, dive a little deeper, and then go, oh, okay, this is what you wanted. I get it. So it's the same with adults. They can't always express themselves on the first answer. And that's why we need to use silence really well. So this is something from my old days of Miller Heiman. In conceptual selling, we talk about golden silence. And, yes, listening is important, but you can't listen when you're talking. So you have to be silent. And silence is sometimes uncomfortable for people, especially virtually, right? I'm sitting there looking at you and waiting, who's gonna, what do we do, right? And especially if there's 3, 4, or 5 people, who's supposed to talk next, right? But we have to be comfortable in our silence because it gives people a chance to process. And everybody processes at a different speed. Of course, I know this because I was a special educator.
Right.
But, not everybody thinks or acts in the same speed that we do. So we have to give them that grace. So if I use silence well, I get a lot more. So maybe I ask you a question that's around your need. And I ask something like, well, how are the others going to use this as we roll it out? Now I need to be quiet. Need to be quiet, right? Well, first you got to have great questions, right? That's in conceptual selling also. But then you've got to be quiet. And then when the person answers or one or two of them answer, you don't just ask the next question. You use silence again to see if they add anything. Because if you hurry up and ask the next question or comment, they have a thought, but they don't get it out. And so you miss it. And usually what comes after that pause is something really good that you need. So if you pause and they don't say anything and you still need more, you can say, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, right? Now I'm not doing all the talking. I'm just prompting them to continue talking and tell me everything I need to know so that I can guide them to the best solution, which, by the way, may not be my solution. And my job, as a human who's helping others, is to make sure they make the very best decision possible. Even though, right, that means I might not get the deal, which is really hard when you have downward pressure to make a quota.
Man, there are so many great things to unpack there, Alice. But we were talking off camera here about listening. A couple of weeks ago, we had Oscar Trimboli, who's written this book, Deep Listening. And
I need to read that for sure. It sounds great.
And the good news is it's a 2-hour read. So it's a tiny book. We talked about that. He spent so much time trying to boil it down. But to kind of completely support your point about the listening, and they may not have got everything out they wanted.
Right.
People think, in 900 words per minute. People speak 125 words per minute. So when they're telling you something, it's not everything in their mind.
Right.
They've got lots more going in there that we have to try and pull out. You also talked about, keeping people engaged. We only know if they're talking. We know that people listen, at 400 words a minute. So when I'm talking at 125 words per minute. You're listening at 400. It's almost impossible for you not to get distracted.
Right. My brain can do lots of other things and listen to you. Although if it's doing some other things, I come back and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did he just say?
Exactly. Which is what salespeople do all the time.
Yes. And, I feel like it's okay because everybody's mind wanders. And I have actually said to people, oh my gosh, I know that what you said was really important and my mind wandered just a bit. Would you mind repeating that? And they're like, oh, of course. Right.
Yeah. Great. So we go, but the listening, get them talking. We're not trying to go through our questions to get through our questions. Right. We have to be in that conversation. And knowing my mind can be distracted, I have to be so zoned in on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Great, man. If the folks listening to this only took that from today, the pregnant pause.
Yeah. And just be comfortable with it. Be comfortable.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable in a discussion when you let silence sit there. But
yeah.
they'll fill it up. So Alice, you jumped in with Miller Heiman. Tell us what you did there and for how long. Tell us about that journey.
Well, my dad is Steve Heiman and his partner, Bob Miller, started that company in the 70s when I was still in college. Now I've just dated myself for all of you. If you can do the math real quick. Oh, I love that you have that right there. Awesome. Very good. Very good. So they started the company together after both of them had really pretty long careers in sales and had run huge sales teams. My dad was the vice president of sales for North American Van Lines and then advanced there as well. And, both of them had done some tremendous work in sales as salespeople, sales leaders, and then the leader of sales leaders. So they had a lot to say. And both of them were really convinced that it's all about the customer, luckily.
Wow.
And so everything that they did was in that vein. Strategic selling and conceptual selling and large account management are all about how you circle around what the customer needs, how you understand the customer, how you guide the customer, all the things that everyone's still saying today. Oh my gosh, it's the customer journey. Listen to the customer. Of course it is. And it always has been. And that's the way that it works. And so, they built a beautiful company that provided methodology on how to position yourself for the complex sale so that you could move through, to the win or loss, either way, but that you were continually moving. And I think today everybody's complaining that deals get stalled and that we lose deals to no decision. So
Right.
if that's happening to you, pick up a copy of Strategic Selling and read it, and you'll learn about positioning and how to continue moving forward. And then in conceptual selling, as I was mentioning, they, taught people to prepare for a conversation in a way that they could allow themselves to listen, and that they could ask really higher level questions, not just what we used to call BANT. Do you have a
Right.
budget? Do you have the authority? Do you have the need? Do you have, what's your timing? Please don't do that anymore. That's so 1980s. And it's really annoying to the person who's buying from you, because if they have interest, they know that you need to meet the other people. They
Right.
know that you're eventually going to need to know their budget. They know that they're going to have to let you know their timing. Get to understand their problem and get to understand how others around them who have that same problem and are trying to solve together, how you can help them, bring insight, bring them to consensus to make a decision. And the rest of it just comes, right? So to have those conversations. So that's what conceptual selling and strategic selling help you do. I won't get into the other, the large account management is really, how do you retain your best customers and grow with them and become a partner? So all of that is still relevant today, although some of the stories in those books, maybe, from companies that, are older or maybe even gone, but the concepts still hold. And so I started working with them after 13 years as a public school teacher, and having been a special ed teacher, a reading specialist, and having trained teachers. So I stepped into this world of business. I always say I was catapulted, because going from like kindergarten kids and, to
Both the same, more or less.
in the big world, right? So it was a bit different, but I was there to really help them with their curriculum, and I did. And then I started teaching the programs, and then training the trainers, and then managing some of the largest accounts: Hewlett Packard, AT&T, Fidelity Investments.
Cool.
I could go on, big companies. So I only spent 3 years though at Miller Heiman. So my dad, believe it or not, 3 years full time. Prior to that, I was always doing projects for my dad. That's, just the way it was. So I was always doing projects for him, but he bought Bob Miller out in like 89.
Okay.
And then my stepmother was helping him run the company, and they were doing a great job and really growing. And then in 94, I joined them, and we grew the company some more. And then I learned that they wanted to sell. And so we, prepared the company for sale. That was part of bringing the curriculum up to speed. So it went from these old brown 3-ring binders, to full color and really slim, sleek looking binders back in the 90s, and brought it up, to something that looked and felt a little more modern. And then, they were looking for buyers. So I was really only there 3 years, because they were selling the company. And in 97, I started the company that I have today.
We're going to get to that company in a minute. After acknowledging a couple of things. First of all, for those listening, anybody who's ever worked with us, I love Miller Heiman. And so I was one of those people in the early 90s. My first sales job, selling photocopiers. Had Miller Heiman come in to do the training for the Eastman Kodak company. It was fantastic. And in those days, photocopiers were 60 grand in 1991. We only sold these really big ones. So the one thing, first of all, I thought the methodology was an amazing tool, simple, quick, easy to use. And because I'm such a sales nerd and I read, literally hundreds of books on professional selling, I'm wondering if you folks ever go to every one of these authors saying, hey, it's a new thing. Multiple people influence a decision to make a purchase. This is not a new thing.
No.
For significant investments by businesses, and, I was kind of a big deal guy for a while. It's always been, a consensus group who all had different degrees of influence and different needs and wants and win scenarios. That's been the case since as long as I've been selling, which has been 25 years, 28 years, but absolutely love it. And then you see it in so many other, books and publications out there, but they seem to be the first ones who truly nailed it. So just foundational. By the way, Alice, I will tell you, from about 1992 to 2002, when I was running 4 or 5 different sales organizations, I brought you folks in every time. So I think I've kind of paid for this podcast.
All right. I
And by
love
the end,
hearing
I was
that.
doing most of the training. So I think maybe just offline we can talk about that. But
That's great.
yeah,
Yeah. I love it when I run into people who tell me, oh my gosh, I took
totally
Miller
love it.
Heiman classes 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and it changed the way that I sell. And I'm so grateful that I know how to use strategic selling. And I just love hearing that because, again, all the methodology today that's out there, and I, like you, read all, I read, all my friends write books on selling.
Yeah,
I
I
read
see
them
Andy
all.
Paul's new book there on your desk, Sell
Right?
Without
I've
Selling
got
Out.
Andy Paul's new
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
And, the people who are the thought leaders are taking that information about the customer journey, being all about the customer, and really trying to help everybody understand, yes, this is the way to win. It's not new, but it is the way to win. And I believe, as I said before, it has always been the way. Focus on your customer, help them get what they want. Now let's take that back 60 years to Dale Carnegie. What did he always say? How to win friends and influence people. People don't care about you. They care about themselves and what they need and want and getting their needs met, right? So if you can help others get what they want, you can win.
So by the way, there's another one for people to pick up, and they're going to laugh at me. Look at the New York Times bestseller, nonfiction bestseller list every year. People are still buying How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that I teach at the University of Nevada. I teach sales in the entrepreneurship minor.
Cool.
And that is required reading for my students. The first thing they read.
Love it.
I've changed this around a bit over the years because I've been doing this for a long time now. But the first thing they read is now The Entrepreneurial Leap by Gino Wickman. I have them read that because it's like, I want them to understand, do you really want to be an entrepreneur? And that's what Gino goes through, as you know. And then I have them read How to Win Friends and Influence People because it's a sales class. And I also have them read Dan Pink's To Sell is Human.
Love it.
And that helps set the foundation for what is selling. What do humans need to do when they buy? They need to make a decision, right? And how do we help them do that? So I'm trying to set that foundation for them. First, you want to be an entrepreneur because, that's something in itself. But then I want them to understand sales at a human level. So those two books, How to Win Friends and Influence People and To Sell is Human, set the stage for that. And then they're open to learning different sales methodologies that they could use that might be right for their business.
Oh, Alice. So I think everybody just got the education they need. I love To Sell is Human, one of my favorite sales books ever. And Dan Pink's on the podcast 3 weeks from now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So his new book is The Power of Regret. And Alice also referenced Gino Wickman from EOS fame. Many of the entrepreneurs who listen to this will know Gino and EOS and his great book, Traction.
Yeah.
But boy,
which is also on my desk right there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. My beady little eyes. I had to look over there. So with Dan Pink, attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. So,
yes.
but the fun part of that book is he doesn't have a background in sales. And he's taking a view of professional sales through the eyes of the last fuller brush person ever to sell. What a great book. Oh,
and of course, many people listening have no idea what fuller brush is. So look it up.
Look it up and you'll go, wow. Then they're going to go, I wonder how old Mark Cox really is if he knows the fuller brush, man.
Dan Pink's books are awesome. Everything that he writes, I do love. And I do want to really put a plug in for Gino Wickman as well, because the EOS system, the entrepreneurial operating system, is a good one. And Gino has tons of videos on EOS, but also on the entrepreneurial leap. So if you're sitting here thinking, I'm in sales right now, but I've got this idea for a business that I'm going to go launch, read Gino's book first.
By the way, and with the number of plugs we've made in this podcast alone, I'm assuming you and I are not going to have to work ever again.
I think
So
they should definitely, we'll list all these in the show notes, by the way, because
that's
I'm
right.
sure unless you're madly writing it all down, you're not getting it.
If
So
at a minimum, this thing should explode on social media. Justin, if you can just look into our third-party partnerships, Justin, who's on our team. So all these other folks, we've given some great plugs to. Let's bring it back to Alice Heiman. So Sales Talk for CEOs, Sales Talk for CEOs, fantastic podcast that Alice runs. And tell us about the podcast and how are we doing in professional sales, Alice? So you're talking to all these amazing entrepreneurs and CEOs. You're seeing what's happening out there. How are we doing as a profession?
yeah, I'm going to give us a C.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Not even a C plus, just a C, right? I think we're just doing very average. I think there are some companies who are doing better than average. And unfortunately, there's companies doing worse than average, but I don't see the world of sales changing fast enough. Although I do see that COVID and the pandemic did push us to change in some very positive ways. And I'm loving that. I'm really liking that because salespeople had to learn some new skills, some different skills, to be on video like we are now and have a conversation and look in the camera. So, it's not like, oh, looking at,
That's right. Camera's over to the side and you see the side view.
Oh yeah, sure. Yes.
I know.
No.
We're still having those.
I'll do another shout out. My good friend, Julie Hansen, who wrote her new book, Look Me in the Eye, which is right there behind me as well. If you're not looking at the camera, people are wondering, what are you doing? Right now, of course, we need to take notes and things like that. So we need to just say, hey, if you see me looking down, I'm taking a few notes. Don't assume people know that. They expect you to look at them. If you were sitting across the table from them, you would look up and look at them and look them in the eye, right? And of course, then they would see that you were taking notes. So when you look down, they knew, you had your notebook and whatnot, and you're writing. But we got to be really conscious of these things. I also think that we learned that we don't have to fly around for a 1 hour meeting, and then fly back. That we can do things differently. So I'm going to give us a little bit more credit because we've started to learn how to be more efficient as sellers and not have such huge travel budgets. Not that travel isn't important. And there are absolutely times when you need to get face-to-face. Trade shows are important. Conferences are important. There are times, right? But that we can conduct business this way very well if we learn some new skills, right? Now, I've been conducting business this way for years, long before the pandemic, at least 10 years before, because my clients are global. So I used, when video technology first came out, we had WebEx and some of the other ones, the early
Skype
ones,
and Teams.
I was
and everything.
using them because my clients were all over and you couldn't always fly for every meeting every week. So I was very used to it. But when I recognized that others were not, I thought, wow, okay, this is something we have to start to train salespeople to do. So I think that's helped us move forward. I also think that the internet has changed things so much because we are digital buyers, right?
Yes.
In our own personal lives as consumers, we get on and shop at midnight. We get on and shop at 3 a.m. We
sure do.
Shop in the middle of the day. We shop whenever we want. And now with the pandemic, it's made it even more because some of us didn't want to leave at all or couldn't leave our homes. And so we needed everything delivered. So we've gotten really good at shopping online and chatting with the chatbot to find out something and, returning things from our own home and having UPS or whoever pick them up. We carry that into our business lives and we want that same experience. That's where I'm giving us a C. Too many sales organizations are still all about the sellers and not about sales, which sales is about the way people want to buy, not the way you want to sell to them. So when you focus on sellers, right, then you insist that in order for me to buy something, I have to talk to one of your sellers. And that's the only way I can get my information. But I'm a digital buyer and I don't want to talk to your seller until I know that I want what you have. So I want to get on your website and watch a video. I want to download something and read it. I want to look at your social media and see what you're talking about. Yes, I'm going to ask others because most of us, that's the way we start. Hey, Mark, I'm looking for some software that can send emails for me. Which one do you use?
Right.
So I'm going to start there. Almost always a human's going to talk to another human and ask for advice. What do you use? Do you like it? I might ask 3 humans. What do you use? What do you like? And then the next thing I'm going to do is go do my own research on the internet. And if I've got 3 companies that I'm going to investigate and I go to each of their websites, the one that gives me what I want is the one I'm going to stay on.
Right.
And if you look at your own website, you are making it miserable for the buyer. You're making it really hard for them to buy because they cannot get the information they need without clicking and booking a demo. Okay, I don't want a demo yet. I just want to talk to somebody and ask the questions that I have. And if the answers are affirmative, then I'll book a demo, right? But I need what I want and I need it when I want it. So even as a business person, if I need some new software in the middle of the day, I'm busy with my clients. I do not look for software. I wait till 9 o'clock at night when, the kids are in bed, right?
Great
And
point.
you can have some quiet time without the phone ringing and having to look at email. Between 9 and midnight is probably when a lot of senior executives have time to explore what they, looking for products that you're offering. So what do they see when they get to your website? Can they get what they want? Is there some sort of mini, yes, a bit generic demo, but at least it shows me, like, what does this do? Half the time I get to a website and, I've got people telling me about their products every single day. Can you look at our product? Can you tell me what you think? A lot of, sales related and marketing related softwares, right?
Yeah.
I get to their website and I'm like, what do you do?
Right.
I can't even figure out which system you impact or, differentiate you in any way from, I don't even know what, I don't even know who to compare you to. So I have to type in, compare this company to, who are their competitors? I type in, who are the competitors of XYZ company? So I can start to go, oh, you compete with SalesLoft or Outreach or VanillaSoft, companies that I know because they've built their brand. But it's really hard. And I think people are making it so hard for their buyers. Things like, again, just having to talk to a salesperson. And then once I do want to buy from you, you're going to put my contract through legal for 3 weeks.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I mean, just crazy stuff like that. So I implore everyone listening to ask yourself this question. What have we done today to make it easier to be our customer and harder to be our competitor? And if you ask that question frequently enough, people will start to come up with answers. Every CEO out there listening should take the buyer journey that their buyers take from the outside and see what it's like to be on your email list, to go to your website and try to find something, right? And then you should go to your competitors and do the same thing so that you can help inform the direction and the strategy for your company better. The other thing that every CEO should do is a voice of the customer survey with a third party, unrelated third party, calling your customers and asking them, remember back to when you had to make a decision to buy, what did you do first? What did you do next? How did that work? And learn the journey, right? And then ask them, why did you choose us? Why did you choose this company? And why did you not choose the others, right? So do some sort of voice of the customer. But you've got to start learning what your customer journey is and if you're making it hard for them to buy or not. So this is why I give a C, because when I go to websites myself, I can't figure it out. I can't get the information I need. They have a chatbot, but there's no real human being there.
Right.
So all it can do is give me, automated answers. Well, if you're going to have a chatbot, put somebody on the chatbot 24/7, because, okay, 5 o'clock, that person goes home. I'm looking at 9 o'clock. I'm looking at midnight. So that doesn't, plus if you sell globally, then the people who in the totally different time
Right.
zones never have the opportunity to talk to a live person. Just think about it. What are you doing to make it easier to be your customer and harder to be your competitor?
I think I just got a bit of a sense as to what it might feel like to be in your class at the University of Nevada. I think I just got some nuggets. I know the reading list. Now
Yeah.
I know the energy and enthusiasm with, by the way, bet membership in that class, attendance in that class is going to go up next quarter if we get this podcast to as many people as we need to. Great thoughts and tips. Great thoughts for everybody to take away. And one of the things that resonated so much with me with what you just said, Alice, is getting a third party to go and understand your client's journey.
Right.
Their buying journey. I think a lot of us go, okay, let's try and map out the client's journey. And okay, let me talk to my 3, 4, 5 salespeople, my 10, 15, 20. I'll talk to marketing. I've recently seen, reports that came back. And my first question was this our opinion or was this somebody else's opinion? They go, it was our opinion. So really, we just got our internal consensus
Right.
within the four
What
walls
we
of the building.
think the journey is. We don't really know because we've never taken it as an outsider.
Right. We've never bought anything from us.
Right.
So I love that idea. And we've just created, a kind of a farm system for somebody to pop up doing this, for a company to pop up doing exactly this, mapping out the buyer's journey, for organizations, who really want third-party insight in terms of what their customers and prospects are experiencing. By the way, there were 3 or 4 clips in there too. That'll be the start of this podcast for sure. I can't believe it. It must be happen the same way in some of your classes at school, that our time is coming to a little bit of an end here. And it's just been fantastic speaking to you, Alice. By the way, it makes no sense to me that we haven't met. You met.
I know. Isn't that strange? We have 500 mutual connections.
It's ridiculous.
And we had never met before.
Julie, your pal Julie Hansen was on the show 3 weeks ago also.
Oh, she's
talking about
so
going from
awesome. She's
acting
in
to
my
sales.
mastermind group and I just
she's great.
adore her. She's amazing.
Just a great conversation just like this one. How do the listeners who are going to love what they've heard here, how do they learn more or engage you?
Well, thanks for asking. I'm going to take a minute to
please do
what I actually do, because I think, we've been talking around a lot of things, but in my world, what I do is work with the CEOs of companies that have a business to business complex sale, right? Who are in tech or some other innovative type of company. And they're mature companies, 10 to maybe 20 years old, who are trying to scale now for some reason. Either they're looking for an exit, they're looking to take on debt or equity, but they're making some changes and they really want to grow faster and they want to increase their sales and increase the valuation of their company. So that's what I spend my days doing. Teaching is a very part-time thing that I love, but I spend my days with these CEOs and their senior teams really strategizing, right, on how they're going to get to their next level and increase their valuation. And I love it. Complex problems, challenges, fun things, to do. So that's what I spend my days doing. And you can find me at aliceheiman.com, which is really easy. But I also hope you'll find me on my podcast, which is everywhere where you listen to your favorite podcast. And it's called Sales Talk for CEOs. And even though you're not a CEO, you may influence a CEO. So you should listen as well.
Oh, fantastic. And all of that team will be in the show notes. So you've got an easy way of connecting with Alice, and I can't imagine you wouldn't want to.
Alice. Yeah. And please find me on LinkedIn. I love to connect. So send me a note and tell me you heard me on Mark's show though, because I want to know how you found me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that. What a great pleasure chatting with you, Alice. We'll have you back on the show for sure.
Oh, I would love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.